So today I wanted to discuss a little bit more about sport and just the philosophy aspect behind sport and the reason why sport is such a great way for people to exhibit their philosophy. Because if we take the premise of the will and the will being expressed in all things, sport is a bit more of a level playing field for the expression of such. Now, there's differing degrees of fairness which are implemented within the rule set of sports to enable there to be equality amongst participants in so fair enough way to facilitate the best competition possible within the given confines. And I think if you look at this across different sports, the limitations which are set in have an effect on the overall athleticness of the participant. For example, if you're doing a sport where you do not have to move, the innate athleticism of the player is not going to be as good as the sport where the person has to move a lot, because that will force cardiovascular adaptations. So, for example, you can see old people who are able to be competitive at golf who are over the ages of 40, 50, 60, because the primary factor in that sport is skill and being able to hit the ball appropriately. Whereas if you look at a different sport, such as gymnastics, particularly for women, and even diving, where you can see one of the most recent Olympic champions, he had a age of, I believe, 12 or 13, maybe even 14. It was a Chinese female diver, and she won a gold medal. But longevity in sports like that, where there's high impact on joints and everything, is not as long. So, for example, a gymnast is more likely to experience repeated trauma, such as that, through the shock absorption, which reduces their ability to continue the sport. This obviously takes a lot of different forms, as with different sports, there's primary traits of the individual that tend to express themselves, like genetic traits. For example, in a lot of sports, it just helps to be big. Contact sports, big, that's the most underwriting principle. So you see that in things such as rugby or NFL. And basketball is a good one. There's a natural preference for height. Shot put is just power, so it's just big again. Now, I think the limitation of sort of body types that can compete, it excludes people being truly athletic, because if you're doing a sport where you have a high power output but there's no cardiovascular output, then you're probably not going to be very good at running per se, or as good at like long distance running or something like that. Whereas if you are doing a sport like martial arts, like any form of that, it's essentially, because the rules are just about bettering the opponent and not so much about an object or other players or what a referee says. Yes, the referee can have an impact. You see it all the time, weird boxing decisions, weird MMA decisions. But the thing is, the sport and the activity of the fight is between one person and another, and it's about who can exhibit their will over the other person And that's essentially the fundamental thing. And it's the best expression of the will to power in a sporting context, because it's purely one athlete's capacity to overcome the other, and it's at a even weight. As much as people can fluctuate more and there's body fat percentages, whatever, this creates really athletic people for the size that they are. Of course, there's weight classes for a reason. So if the sport was not done in such a way the big people would dominate, you could never appreciate the likes of a Mighty Mouse or something. However, due to the way it's set up, it's a very even expression of the will in a competitive context. Thanks.